Hello everyone and welcome back to the quest. I'm your party lead Takeda, and today we're talking about the newly revealed DQ7 Reimagined. We'll be going over everything we know about the remake so far, and we will also be digging into the implications of the release and how it might be hiding the biggest secret reveal since the surprise ending of DragonQuest XI. A quick preface before we begin. DragonQuest VII is one of only two mainline titles in the DQ series that my wife and I have yet to play, the other being 6. So we are particularly excited for this remake, but the game will be brand new to us, and from what we've heard, it's a giant game. The downside trade-off to this is we don't know a lot about the plot or the story of DQ7, so we need your help filling in the blanks on our theory, and testing whether or not the theory is even possible. But with that disclaimer out of the way, let's dive in. Everything we know so far. This is not a remaster of one of the previous two versions of the game, but apparently an intensive, from the ground up reimagining, complete with an amazing new handcrafted visual style that is reminiscent of Rankin Bass animations. The game will have a slew of quality of life upgrades and a few slight downgrades as well, and will be streamlining the plot and pacing of the game. We have no idea how long the game has been in development, but I would personally guess 4 years or more based on the quality of the remake. It appears Hexadrive, which was hired for DQ12, is the team behind this remake. The game will include an amazing collector's edition that is far better than the offerings for 3 or 1 and 2, but is still drastically overpriced. But yes, we'll still be biting the bullet and buying it to review on the channel. It's expensive getting any official DQ merch in the US anyways, so we just figured we'd bite the bullet here and get something that we think looks really cool. We're really excited about this collector's edition. And while other small details are being drip-fed to us, that's the bulk of what we know so far. So, that brings us into the topic for today. Why DQ7? Why now? If you pay attention to the Nintendo Direct rumor mill, or just keep your eyes peeled for DQ info like we do, you probably heard the rumors that the DQ7 remake would be revealed during the most recent Nintendo Direct. And if you're like me, that got you excited, but you knew better than to get your hopes up. So what an exciting thrill it was when the trailer started up and we realized it was all true. But here's the thing, it was easy to question the rumors and leaks because, well, why would they be remaking Dragon Quest VII right now when they've been so busy with the HD 2D remakes of Dragon Quest 1 through 3? I mean, we got the announcement of Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D a long time before that game was ever released. So what were the odds they were already deep in production on another DQ remake? And then that release date hit. Holy crap. It's almost here. That means they kept this under wraps for years while development was ongoing for the HD 2D trilogy and DQ12, which we still know almost nothing about almost 5 years on. And this reveal was really weird. Why the secrecy? Why a remake of 7 now? I mean, after 1 and 3, if sales are good, you'd figure they move directly into 4, 5, and 6, which would be easy to develop in the same style. And if you were going to update a different Dragon Quest game separately from the rest, why not 8, which is one of the most popular in the series and would be very easy to just remaster? Or 9, which is deeply loved by the fanbase and is more or less a complete standalone story that would also be easy to simply remaster? Why a from the ground up remake of Dragon Quest VII? Especially when it didn't do crazy well outside of Japan and has quite a bit of negative perception related to its sloggy pacing and overly long campaign. Well, we've been scratching our heads over it and looking at every aspect we can, and there seem to be 2 general possibilities for why DQ7 is being remade right now, and one of them is something you might not expect. First, and most likely, simply has to do with a desire by the team to refresh one of their favorite games in the franchise. You can tell from what's been released so far that there's a lot of love behind this remake, and a desire for it to be a sort of definitive edition. Maybe it was even planned for a while as a 25th anniversary release. But the original was released in the year 2000 in Japan, and this one won't be out until 2026 worldwide. Maybe they just couldn't get it done in time and it conflicted too much with the 1 and 2 HD 2D release. Maybe they just decided to roll it back a little bit. But if that's the case, why isn't there any mention anywhere of a 25th anniversary? So far, it seems to be nowhere in any of the marketing material. Is this all just a fluke and the developers just wanted to make this one now? Or is there something much deeper going on? That's when I started realizing there might be another reason for it to be coming out now. one I haven't seen anyone else raise yet, and honestly, I'm surprised no one's considering it. Maybe there's a very specific reason Dragon Quest VII is coming out now, why it has been under wraps for so long, and why it was announced just a month before 1 and 2 are released. What if it's all been part of a plan that's been slowly unfolding right under our noses for several years, ever since Dragon Quest XI released all the way back in 2017? What if Yuji Horii has been working non-stop to rebuild all of the Dragon Quest franchise from the ground up for his final big project? So as players reach the end of the final act of DQ11, the Yig Dragon bestowed the title Erdrick upon the Luminary, and it was revealed that this title will be passed down to future heroes of the realm. We then get the reveal of the hero from Dragon Quest I, who is presumably a far distant descendant of characters in the game. Then at the end of the credits, we get a final reveal of a woman reading the events of DQ11 in a book. She places it on a shelf and then goes to wake up her son, the hero of Dragon Quest III. We didn't know it at the time, but this was more than just confirmation of the chronology of DQ11, but it was also likely a secret tease for the remake that Yuji Horii already had planned at that time. Fast forward a few years, and we now have that remake, which has new story content strengthening the connections between 3 and 1 and 2. There's a final reveal near the end of the game where the High Priest of the Dragon Queen, who is left to watch over her egg, reveals his name to be Hargon, and Hargon's one of the main villains of Dragon Quest II. While this wasn't the craziest reveal ever, it did show an intent to flesh out the narrative connections of the series and intertwine events in a greater way than ever before. This all gets a lot more interesting with the upcoming Dragon Quest I and II HD 2-day remakes. 2 is notorious for having a lot of cut content in its original release due to a tumultuous development schedule. The remake appears to be heavily focused on fixing some of these historical losses, with things like the development of the fairy sigils and the addition of the Princess of Cannock to the party. The addition of the fairy sigils to the first game shows that these two stories will have their connections strengthened. And on top of all of that, the team has also hinted at a big twist a few different times, and specifically said that it is really worth playing these games in chronological order this time around. Oh, and I should quickly mention here, in case you're brand new to Dragon Quest and don't already know, but Dragon Quest III was famous when it released for having a big reveal at the end of the game, showing you were actually playing as the legendary hero often mentioned in DQ1 and 2 all along. So Dragon Quest III is canonically first. And that brings me to an interesting note in this theory. Does anyone else find it interesting that they decided to release 3 and then 1 and 2 instead of the whole trilogy at once? I mean, you can chalk that up to extra sales, but what if it was all intentional because the developers wanted new players to play 3 and then 1 and 2 and experience new secret reveals for the first time? See, if you happen to start with Dragon Quest XI and were excited by the end reveal and then decided to pick up the 3 remake to experience the classic you hadn't played before, you would be getting a unique chronological experience of the DQ world, one that has only tentatively existed before now. And if you then pick up 1 and 2 and play them as the game will likely prompt you to in that order, you will have played 4 successive episodes in a series. What if 2's big twist at the end, and this new story content that's been added, will reveal that the journey isn't over? What if you were on a long journey to play through the entire Dragon Quest timeline for the first time in official chronological order? What if creator Yuji Horii knows he only has so much time left to tell stories in his beloved series, and what if he wanted to try to wrap everything up in a nice little bow, revisiting a lifetime of work before telling what may be his last chapter in the story with Dragon Quest XII, Flames of Fate? Flames of Fate, a heavy title that could already be hinting at a finality to the story. And we've already seen small new story hints in the little bit of DQ7 that has been teased. And it's worth noting, if you take a look at the DLC again, do you notice how much it's related to either 11 or 1, 2, and 3? The only notable outlier is a costume for the hero of DQ8. Now, really it's likely just a fluke that DQ7 is coming out now. But what if, just what if, we get to the end of DQ2 and get a new, unexpected connection to 7? And then what if 7 ends with new context that finally places it in a larger framework, connecting it to other games in the series? Now, this video is already getting pretty long, so I don't want to go too far down an explainer of the unofficial versions of the DQ timeline. So for now, it's worth just noting that the DQ games aren't all connected. Like the Zelda games before the Hyrule Historia, there's no official order. The Erdrick trilogy, consisting of 1, 2, and 3, and the Zenithian trilogy, consisting of 4, 5, and 6, are the only specifically ordered games, but even those two trilogies are not officially connected. Other games in the series have tentative ties to each other, but nothing formalized. It is worth noting, however, for this discussion, that many fans put Dragon Quest VII and 8 in the distant future of the Erdrick trilogy. It's possible that Yuji Horii might be planning to make that connection official. And just as I was writing the script, we got a tease that really strengthens my theory here from Yuji Horii himself. He let slip in a recent interview that multiple other DQ remakes are still being worked on as we speak, including specifically the Zenithian trilogy. So maybe they'll be released in whatever place they fit in this chronological order. Maybe? Now, this might work against my timeline theory in that he said 7 just happened to come out next, but it also confirms my suspicions that Horii himself seems to want to revisit all of the mainline titles. Maybe these comments of 7 just happening to come out next is a sly cover-up of the big reveal they want players to enjoy for themselves. Maybe when this final reveal comes, it will be obvious the journey we're on. Maybe we're on a secret quest across the whole of Dragon Quest to connect all of the games before the grand finale. But hey, that's just us speculating. Like we said before, we don't know the story of 7 in detail and are hesitant to spoil ourselves before playing the remake. So we don't know if there's any good way to connect this game to some of the others. So share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. Is this possible? Are there hints in the timeline that would make 7 as the next official game make sense? Let us know what you think, and if you want us to do a longer deep dive into the timeline and the story of DQ7 to elaborate on this theory. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping our party grow.